And we're live. Now it's just like the only thing that comes to mind in that moment.
Yeah.
Which was probably better than the whatever I was saying before that. So it is our board meeting for TogetherTec. Bentley isn't joining us today. We have a bit of stuff on the agenda to discuss, but mainly we'll probably end up getting through that in about 10 minutes. So today, for the first time, instead of streaming to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously, we're only streaming to YouTube, and then I posted the link on Facebook. So if you see us, just follow it over to YouTube. You can comment there and follow the links in the descriptions for if that's pertinent, which I don't think it is today. It's for other ones. I wrote.
If they can't see it, and they aren't seeing those instructions, but that's fine.
I mean, there's no one watching, so how would they possibly know?
I'm just saying, if you're giving instructions on how to get from Facebook to YouTube, they won't see this unless they're on YouTube.
No, but if it auto plays, then they can follow the clicks, and then, which means I'm just going to check. You talk. Oh, Shiloh's here. Yay. Another person.
Excellent. It's not just us.
You're welcome, Shiloh. I'm just going to look here.
Very excited dog outside.
I wanted to mute myself, not do that. I can also mute if you're muted. Anyway, all right. I'm the only one.
Just trying to juggle mute because there's a dog barking in the background. So
gotcha. I'm trying to mute myself because I want to see if this auto played on Facebook.
I'm fairly sure it won't. Because that gives people incentives to put their videos on Facebook, which is what Facebook wants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Their profit over purpose, which they want people to see videos, but not on YouTube. So yeah, I think before they had the ability to go live on Facebook, they did autoplay in your feed, but no, it doesn't. Maybe it is
embed the videos and stuff. Yeah, it was.
Since where we're playing on Facebook is specifically in the project space, it probably makes sense to do both. So I just wanted to experiment and see as of this one, and tomorrow will be the same thing. We're also only on YouTube and not on Facebook as well. We could add it, but we're just going to keep it for this week and see how it goes. And either way, we're still on Facebook. We're just not auto-played on Facebook, so people can click on it.
And I mean, there's a lot of reasons to go pure YouTube because then it's easier with the interaction and StreamYard and stuff like that. So anyway, it's probably enough talking about all that boring tech stuff.
Well, that's it is a board meeting, so I don't know how.
All right, fair enough.
On the agenda, I don't know if you'd seen Adriel on, because I don't think I sent it to Shiloh. I think I just sent it to Frickstar World Friday Messenger group. The FAQ for TogetherTec. I can put it in here.
I saw you posted. I didn't have a chance to take a look yet.
I mean, it's very short. The only questions I answered were, what is TogetherTec? Who is TogetherTec? How can I get involved with TogetherTec? What does TogetherTec do currently? And where can we find out more? Uh-oh.
Well, playing in the background.
When I clicked on the after muting myself to see if it was played properly, after doing all that, then it double beam. Okay, let's put this in here. Private chat. I think you can copy and paste it for private chat, Shiloh, if you want, for the FAQ, and Adriel too, since you probably don't have it up right now. There's also the agenda. So, which makes sense more for the people here to go than people who are just watching. So the only thing was, I threw it together in like an afternoon. It's just so people can when we do something on TogetherTec, it can be posted in the description.
Right.
A link to the FAQ, or just as people, I don't even know how people get involved in TogetherTec, to join the Facebook group and then just participate.
Right now, there's not really much to join. I'm not sure why you would join right now, unless, if you're just wanting to participate in the board meetings. I think, but it will become more important as we actually start to do things and offer reasons for people to join. So,
and as people join and there starts to be conflict or something happens, then we'll have more of a joining process. Right now, it's show up and participate. See how does it align with you? Does it align with us? Does it work? Show up, participate as much as you want. And so that is basically what the FAQ actually says, is that Okay, you join the Facebook group and participate in the events. That's it.
Yeah.
And what
Okay.
we do is our Fridays. We hold Fridays at 12 p.m. PST. We hold meetings alternating between the IdeaCafe for projects and the board meetings for creating the MetaProject TogetherTec. Saturdays at 9 a.m. PST, we have project roundtables. People with projects or looking for one come to share what they have been doing and what they could use help with. These sessions are all held live on YouTube and Facebook. So as soon as I wrote that, I didn't follow it. And with links to participate on Facebook. We also hold project ratings when requested. So I did post the link to participate for sure. But part of it is on YouTube, since anyone can watch. I don't post links to participate because the whole point is not to have random people.
Right.
So that's another reason to go live on Facebook. Is that then it catches people's eye and then people can.
Right. Can't jump in that way. That makes sense.
So.
I think one of the alternatives, which I mean is kind of, I think, a big change, but might be worth it, is changing from, I think it's a group to a page. Because like I don't have any of these problems with the wiki election one because that's, I think, a page. And so like I can stream to it, I can, you know, I can comment as it and all that stuff. So we may want to explore that at some point if we're trying to just improve the.
But I think we're a group for a reason. We just want people from that group to come participate. And it's, you know what I mean? We don't necessarily want, you know, my random high school people to see that we're doing this to come and participate. It's like we want people who are either in game B or doing something very game B adjacent and want to do it in that space.
I think for users though, like the difference between a page and a group is almost negligible to the average person. But for some reason in Facebook on the back end, huge difference.
Well, fair enough. We should page versus group. I feel like a page is more just a company and you're like a customer following a brand versus a group is like you're part of it just in the naming, but that doesn't mean it runs that way. So
I mean, I agree. But I think it's a page is a brand and TogetherTec we're trying to build a brand.
Yeah, no, I know, but like I don't even know if a page allows you to have multiple admins and make announcements and you know what I mean? Like I think the algorithms, even though maybe when we're live it's better, it's not necessarily better when everyone else is posting to also, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to turn it more into a group than a page. The experience of being in it, right? Of like us owning the page and you liking it and getting and following versus a group that we're all part of and contributing to, even if people aren't actually contributing as much.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And yeah, I know that there's going to be reasons for each, just it's interesting to see the two different sides because it's been way easier to stream to wiki election using StreamYard.
Fair enough. Do you have a lot of people like? How many people like your page on Wikipedia on the wiki election?
I think there's like 30 now.
30 people who like it, but there wasn't. Did you advertise it? Like, how did you get 30 people to like it, or did you just go live and then people found you?
Sorry, no, I'm talking about 30 people liking like the page for wiki election.
Right. My question is, how did those 30 people find you? Did you just go live? Like, because right now you go live in a group. No one outside.
That was mostly from before, right? Where it was like where I would like, you know, when I did the Kickstarter for wiki election and I posted on my personal page, like, you know, friends and family and stuff would go and join. And then I've had like, I think possibly some people from Game B and like occasional people showing up and finding it. And I assume it's probably from the Game B stuff.
I guess my question, like, what is it that worked for the wiki election page that you don't think works for the TogetherTec group?
Just StreamYard streaming to it, right? Like when you're setting up the channels in StreamYard, it sort of explains like, hey, by the way, you're streaming to a page, you won't be able to do this, 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 and this. Like, you know, like I think it's harder for it to like where that person has to like the, I think they have to like StreamYard or something, and then we can see their, like it's the whole connection between StreamYard and Facebook is easier and better if you're a group, a page instead of a group. Yeah.
It's like, well, we'll pay brands. That does sound like for-profit companies, but not groups. It could be grassroots. No, not happening. Or it's just a glitch. So that's the FAQ. I don't even know where we necessarily want to use it, what we want to add to it, but it's a good place as we hear common questions to have one place to store them, because the agenda is like for our internal use, right? Anyone can, in the private chat is the link to the agenda and the FAQ. The top one is the FAQ, the bottom one is the agenda. And the agenda, you can see, there's weeks we don't fill it out. This week it just has a date. It's like very, and we just fill it out as we sit here and just add things. Sometimes we take notes, but they're all of our board meetings are available as a hour-long video. So even if we don't take notes, it's still there for
right.
And so that's all I had on the agenda for TogetherTec. Now that Patricia's here, though, I think we could possibly talk about our solution raising, or we did talk about mapping Game B that was kind of a TogetherTec project and kind of not a TogetherTec project. Or if anyone else has anything they'd like to add for more of like, how do we discuss the MetaProject or move the MetaProject forward, whatever anyone else would like to add to the agenda, even if they didn't know the agenda existed.
I'm slightly curious about how do you see the TogetherTec being not identical but very connected to the MetaProject? Because sorry for the background noise. It seems that they are kind of two aspects of the same thing.
They are.
Yeah, they're two names for
the same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
It's just if we say MetaProject, people in Game B know what we're talking about. TogetherTec, it's just the name of the MetaProject, because TogetherTec isn't necessarily Game B, even if it's 90% Game B people. It's the idea that you don't need to understand Game B to be Game B, right? To know that we need a better world, that you're trying to create omni-win solutions that's kind of more of the important part. So it was already had the name TogetherTec, and then we were kind of like, we need a name for the MetaProject, and it became the two are analogous.
Yeah, so it's kind of like our flavor of, the like trying to figure out how we can help projects move forward as a group, that whole thing. It started out talking as the MetaProject because it's a project about projects, and then as Jubilee said, it sort of became we were trying to brand it, and Jubilee had the name TogetherTec, and it fits quite well with what it's trying to do. So, but yeah, they're synonyms.
Cool.
All three. So you'll hear us say MetaProject, Game B projects, and TogetherTec. It's all basically the same thing.
Yeah, okay. And fortunately, TogetherTec is also synonymous with like a technology cooperative in general. That's something that like humanity owns together, the members own together, but because we don't have a project in and of itself that isn't the MetaProject right now, it's also like how to get to a technology cooperative we all own. Part of it is creating it from the ground up, which is solution raisings and figuring out the process to do that. And then also bringing people's projects together to bring them in the world and creating common solutions. So we're kind of attacking it from all angles at the same time. And TogetherTec is somewhat the umbrella for that and somewhat hard to contain conversation. And it's like our version of Game B and how to create it without owning Game B. Right, without being like Game B is ours, and anyone who's involved in it is like you know whether you're involved in TogetherTec or not, right? You don't necessarily know if you're involved in Game B or not.
So it's like the first step of a fractal thing that is supposed to hopefully.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our attempt at it. I think, as Jubilee said, intentionally not divorcing ourselves from Game B, but like we're a separate entity that we aren't claiming to follow every Game B principle 100%. It's more about just trying to move it forward. What does it take to actually start to work on projects together and figure that stuff out without getting bogged down in the mire of, well, is it, these three things, but not that one Game B element, so it's not Game B. We just want to move projects forward that are even like slightly Game B.
Well, we established that Game B is not supposed to be put in words, so makes sense.
But in what, sorry?
It's not supposed to be defined and described as.
Exactly, which gets hard when you're trying to make like an organization around it, because you kind of have to define what you're doing and what you're about. Yeah. So it's like, our attempt at like, here's the flavor that we think it'll take as far as what a Game B-ish organization can look like. but we're almost certainly going to make choices that the Game Bee community doesn't fully agree with. And they're welcome to, give feedback and or start their own co-op. And then, we can work together and figure out how are we different, how are we the same, how can we help each other, etc.
How do we bring together individuals, hopefully with sovereignty? If not, how do we improve their sovereignty? And then how do projects come together to work? Because that's just where we started. That people in Game Bee happen to have projects they're not going to let go and now become Game Bee as their project. It's like they want Game Bee to somehow shift and focus on their project, or they just realize that they can go both of them and they're not willing to give theirs up and not able. At this point, if Game Bee went away because there was some scandal or some bad media, we don't cease to exist. And similarly, if we go away, we in no way tarnish Game Bee, right? It's very obviously that piece of it that you can't talk about it, but also we need to be able to talk about things. Be able to put it at how do we get to a better world? What is our version of a better world? What is our path there? What is all of the things that are more nebulous within Game Bee?
Yeah, sure. And I think because I tend to think in a lot of things in sort of Game A terms, because I still work in Game A and there's parts of it I like. I think what we're at now is what we'd call in the Game A world thought leadership. So it's not actually selling anything or doing necessarily the main purpose of the organization, but kind of starting to show okay, the people involved are thinking about these areas. That's likely to be what that organization is sort of, skilled at and focused on and that kind of thing, right? So for us, we're doing these, open meetings and doing this sort of open thought process on what does it mean, to have a Game Bee project or to have that kind of a project, and what are the things that it emphasizes, and what does trust mean to people. Having these open conversations so that anyone else, even if they would never join TogetherTec or a co-op, if they could have access to that information, and at some point, as Julie mentioned, the end goal is for it to be an actual, a community-owned co-op that actually owns tech, it owns tech, but as a co-op instead of as a for-profit entity. But that part would be optional. I'm sort of, personally, I've got Wiki Election. I'm also part of TogetherTec because I think the two work well together. And that's an example of, I'm not, going to merge Wiki Election with TogetherTec anytime soon, but it helps kind of answer questions that, for example, Bentley might have at the same time for Reason Score. So we can go under one umbrella, try to solve it all together. And then I'll take my learnings, Bentley will take his, everyone here will all take their own, and then hopefully we'll report back, and that's where the learning happens.
Yes, and from technical point of view, for all the projects, it would be, because they have overlaps, big and small. So for all the projects, if they had APIs, so they could talk together and be useful to each other, that would be also something very good. Yesterday on the mapping meeting, and especially after it, we discussed some with James some more details about how such a system could look like. And at some point, for example, we mentioned that it would be useful to have a set of values defined somewhere as a list of possible values that people might have and adhere to and feel connected to. And for some reason, I recalled what our friend Cesare is doing and his political project. And it has the set of values ready, basically. And it's meant to drill down the values problem and define. And if that project had an API, so other projects that could need a set of values, it's ready somewhere. So it exists already. And yeah, APIs are good.
Right, totally. And I think that's where it would help for sort of, that's something that TogetherTec provides a spot for. So for example, it might provide something sort of user management and user registration, where that if you don't want to have, for example, Cesare has his, I've got TogetherTec, we got Reason Score, I'll have all these different apps. if we didn't want, especially people in the game B space who might be trying out multiple versions of them, if we wanted to like share user registration and say like you create a single user and then you can use that same user anywhere in this ecosystem, kind of like a Google plugin or Facebook plugin used elsewhere, but it's creating something separate because those names come with a lot of baggage and people being concerned about security and privacy, justifiably. To kind of create an alternative through something like an API, starting with possibly a user list or just shared data of some sort.
So one more thing then. James, of course, has his own little project. It's not little, but it's good and interesting. And we discussed something like, because there are so many projects, but so many projects because people like different styles of UIs, and they expect different things to visualize. They have different needs, and it's all good. And I guess that's because we have so many of the projects. But one interesting thing is the data in the backend might be exactly the same, and maybe it even has to be exactly the same. I mean, data can be true or not, and if we had a set of true data on any subject, then all the projects we have and all the projects existing in game B space, more or less, could use the same data but presented in a different way, or focus on different aspects of the data. So there is also that. It was interesting because it showed how possibly we can have a variety of interfaces and users, but working on the same defined set of facts of data and on the basis of something that is independent of interfaces.
Right.
And it's there, ready to be used.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I think wherever possible, we should definitely try to do that, right? So if we have 3 or 4 projects all building up the same data set, if one falls away, we don't lose that data. That's still there. They could all fall away and a new one could pop up and it would have this library of data that it could have access to. I think
something that TogetherTec, like all of the little, like we need to figure out how to fund TogetherTec, right? And fund the individual projects. We're not actually at a place where we could actually accept funding because we haven't worked that out, right?
Right.
But what was my point of that? That to develop a commons, even if only in idea, that is the commons, right? So whether WikiLections are working on their project individually or not, what would they benefit from being in the commons, and what can they give back to the commons?
Right.
Right. So my example is what Matush's talked about, like having different recipe apps, right? One's vegan, but it dissipates the energy. If there's a common pool of information, the user, the recipes, the ingredients, the nutritional information, then you can have your vegan app. And if you know what I mean, if that app goes away, the information's still there, the data's still there, the connections are still there. You might be, join the bigger recipe group as a vegan subset, or join, like there's a lot more power there. But if each individual project is creating their database, then they want to own the database, they want to profit off the database. It has to be done with the commons in mind, right? That like to some degree, again, what is WikiLection? What could they use from the commons and what could they give back to the commons? And then we could figure out what is the most powerful to create in the commons and what we want to get back. Maybe WikiLection gives something back that has nothing to do with WikiLection, right? That's giving back, I don't know, people's postal code information if they're willing to give it back, right? Like whatever that happens to be, that's that information that connects to all of that, right? That connects all the information. And as the user, hopefully I'm in control of my own data, but there's a higher level of information that's available when we pool our data, and it's basically useful. And then the UI, having the UI be very different based on the diversity, including even having that vegan recipe site, right? Whether it's the developer that makes it unique or the user that makes it unique, the commons is common.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I just realized that talking about fractally displaying and gathering data, it's not even about within a single project that displays a fractal of information. It can also mean like totally different projects, same data, but fractally displayed in a totally different style and way.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, and using the same users across all these different apps, assuming that people opt in to all the different areas could be so insanely powerful. Because then if you start to have like a recipe app and a travel app and this and that, you'd be like, okay, well, this person is eating this, they're shopping here, they're doing this, they're going there. They can know so much about themselves.
They can know. I don't know if I should be able to know yours.
Right. And you can control it. But part of the reason to have that information stored, because if it's just for you, I already know where I ate and stuff like that. But if as a community we say, hey, go and tick this box if you want to open up these areas, and then have an algorithm or AI start to look at this disconnected stuff and start to learn. And it's being done under A, an open system, and B, like being helpful, not for profit, because the whole thing, like if it was for profit, who gets the money? No one. So why would you do that? But that sort of disconnected information is where you can get some just crazy powerful stuff.
Yeah. Everything that doesn't exist in the realm of trying to sell you more shit and try to hide it from you. Like we can cure cancer with that information. We can track COVID-19 or whatever new pandemic comes. Like there's a lot of it we can do. They're trying to do that, but you can't, like top down comes with a lot of pushback from the bottom up, whereas the bottom, putting it in place for ourselves is very different. If 10,000 people in Vancouver chose to track our contacts and there was enough of us that would somehow extrapolate to the rest, it would give us some information. And I didn't have to hope that the government is going to be in control of it and do it in an ethical fashion. Then that could happen in every city, right? Like ground up just has so much more power, and our data is a big part of that. We're willing to give our data more, and our data is more useful. I can literally do everything except the one thing we're currently doing with it, which is powerful, but just causing Game B to collapse faster.
Yeah, they are trying to make us use here in Poland this application to track movement of people, and it's officially it's supposed to be very privacy compatible, which is my phone knows only a very limited set of facts about other phones it comes in contact with, and I get the information that someone I was nearby, I was close to, is quarantined, and it looks on the surface, it looks really like, okay, it makes sense. It doesn't store any sensitive information. But then there is a central place controlled by the government, basically. And it so appears that they can decode the data that is not supposed to be decoded by anyone. And there is some possibility of actually tracking people and doing the China thing here. So, and it's almost.
This whole thing is quite the test in human sovereignty and technology and governance in all of it. Because there's like this somewhat diabolically opposed side, the left versus the right, and they look very similar in this COVID, where like the right. It's like, oh my God, we need UBI. And the left was like, we need to close down the border. Like it becomes very, like you kind of look like the other side because your highest value, you need to live. And like which one does that look like? What was my point of this? That right now, there's people who are like, our governments are trying to take out our rights and you're letting them. You're staying inside, you sheeple, get out and protest and take back our governments. The other people who are like, governments are maybe inept, but they're doing the best they can. This is the best we can do right now. There's like, and they're both right. Like it's, what do we do if the conspiracy theory, whichever one is right? That if the government, if this was orchestrated, they're doing it to install 5G to whatever, get our fascist apps installed, inject chips into our arms. How do we stop that? How do we see if that's true? And if it's the other side and we think that they're benevolent, whatever, they're just inept, really. Like that it is just a virus. What is our best course of action then? Like how do we best help? How do we best do either side? Instead of arguing about which is true, what actually works? How would we actually track ourselves? Because it's not the government installing them on our phone for sure. Right. If we want if there's a vaccine coming down the line, what would get people who aren't going to vaccinate to vaccinate? we need to have those conversations now, because it's not leaving it in the hands of Bill Gates. It's not leaving it in the hands of our government.
I think, like, more to that point, what would it take for you to get a vaccine? But also, what would you need to know in order to voluntarily install that app? Like, what would it?
Yeah.
Probably it's not made by a government. That's probably an important one. Probably it's not made by a for-profit corporation. So you start to build okay, if we think that this thing is important, right? Like, okay, so if you think that the whole thing is fake and blah, 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 what would it take for you to actually believe it when the government says that you need to quarantine yourself? What would that look like?
And vice versa. Yeah, right. Exactly. And if you're right, what would this look like? Like, all of it. Like, there's the pandemic that's going around. And it's like, I don't care if it's true or not. We need to stop having, like, documentary is our highest level of media.
Yeah.
We need a way to understand what the fuck is going on without relying on one person's narrative to put it into a video and then sell it to us, and then this person's it's like, I want to know what in this is real and what in this isn't real, and then actually be able to, like, have a conversation about that instead of just, you're wrong, you're an idiot. Because I did the research and you didn't come to the same conclusion as I did. So you're clearly an idiot. It's like, okay.
Which you basically summarize the entire political discourse. You're an idiot because you don't, get access to the same information that I have, and then reach the same conclusions from the information you probably didn't see. So you're an idiot. Yeah.
One of my favorite people on Facebook, or favorite people in real life, and they happen to be on Facebook, posted that did a rebuttal for 7 points against pandemic. And if you continue to post it, then please unfriend me. I was like, this isn't in alignment with who you are as a person. I don't really, like, why would I read those 7 and come to the same conclusion as you? Why? Like, none of this makes sense. None of this is like, and then someone rebuttals that. Well, then you should, like, it's like, this is just not a way to bring this together.
Yeah, and the problem is there isn't even one narrative about it. And there are so many aspects that it's hard to make one sense, because yes, there seems to be the virus. Yes, it's real. But when you read about the specific kind of viruses, it becomes a little strange. Like, it's, I think, 7th of this family that appeared in the world. And it just happens to be so far the most lethal, which is not to say that there is no next virus in line just waiting. I already heard some news that there is a new strand of this thing, and it's already spreading. So yeah, there is that. The origins, who knows? People accuse of, it's China, no, it's US, no, it's whatever. It came from animals, it came from some laboratory, it escaped, it was released. Doesn't even matter. If we cannot do anything about it, I don't think it matters if it escaped from a laboratory. We know that military is working on some stuff like this. Okay, not much we can do about it right now, I think. So the epidemic itself, how problematic is that, given that flu and cancer and whatever else is more lethal than this one? So you have this problem. And then, regardless of all of this, when the pandemic was announced, like, everyone in power just jumped with joy and said, okay, this is how we are going to use it. And they just started using it for everything. And the laws they're passing in my country, sometimes they have nothing to do with any pandemic or any, it's just they are shoveling this whole thing as much as they are able to.
Yeah, I think that's global, because that's definitely happening here in Canada.
So it's crazy. And yeah, that's just another angle to look at it. Then you have the application, and it is open source.
Oh, we lost your audio.
You can't hear you anymore. The deep state has cut you off. Yeah. You're not allowed to say what you're saying. They always seem to do that at just the right opportune times. Nope, getting too close to the truth, Batush.
Still can't hear you.
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know. It cut off like mid-word.
Try going out and back in. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it works, strangely enough.
And hey, Ray.
Hi guys,
Hi.
glad to be stopping in. What a great conversation you're having.
Yeah,
Stop being a board meeting, but it's still the board meeting. It's really awesome. I'm enjoying it. And that is, I think we stopped trying to have a board meeting and just have it's funny, so it's one of the conversations I'm looking to set up in 2 weeks is, and I just got the wording for it, the technological commons, like what's powerful about it, what we can create together. It's basically without actually creating anything, having the conversation, what that generates.
Right.
This is kind of it. Like, I'm like, I don't know, do I need a separate one, or is this is that one? Like, I don't know. But
yeah. I mean, part of it too is we haven't really like boardified the board meeting yet. It sort of starts off as a board meeting and then meanders to other things.
We have a certain number of things on the agenda. We got through them. It was quick.
Which, yeah, and I think as we get more, sort of like actually have things to discuss, the agenda will get longer and it'll become a more, half an hour board meeting topics and then half an hour of whatever.
I think also once we get it figured out, possibly doing something like going through the protocol.love stuff, right? Like less about the incorporation, like the legal incorporation, which also to get funds to do that, we definitely need to do in the game world. But even more importantly, to know what entity, to know what going through and like what are our values, what are our. It was when he's gone right now. When Matush was talking about values, I know I have values for TogetherTec that, especially in the beginning, I was like, I can't get on anyone else's project unless it's like these things, and it has to be these things, and I still hold those for TogetherTec, and any project I'm on has to hold those. But I think it's like just like Gabe B's kind of the Venn diagram and all the Venn diagrams of what's important to me and what I bring to the table, so is my value system, right? It's like, well, which values are important? It's actually all the values, and it's the fact that my highest might be safety, and someone else's might be justice, and someone else's might be equity, or I don't even know what the values are, but like that TogetherTec's honoring is in the diversity that they're all important. And yes, we hold these 1, 2, 3 at the highest esteem because we commonly hold them together. Right. And like kind of like the word cloud, right? Where it's like, oh, look, we all have integrity, because there might even be ones that they don't make the list because they're so common amongst us that we don't even know that that other people don't share them, right? And so anyway, like having a thought
bubble. I think it almost makes sense for TogetherTec to reverse it, and instead of saying what you have to have, just say what you can't have. Because I think there's going to be a lot of, right, like what are the things that like, most people involved agree, like, yeah, we don't want that kind of a project. And like, is it that you have to have, 3 or more of them? Is it any single one of them? Because I think we've had this talk a couple of times where it's like, individual projects will have their own values and things that they're trying to solve, but then TogetherTec will have its own as kind of a network of projects to say, kind of, if you're joining TogetherTec, why? Like, what do all these people or these projects that have joined TogetherTec, why did they join? What do they have in common?
And also, I mean, like, I'm gonna hold different values. My projects I'm on are going to hold different values. And TogetherTec, like if we're talking about it in the terms of that technological commons, right? So what is it that's in that common space? What values are in that common space? What then? I'm not answering that question as Jubilee. What does Jubilee hold valuable? It is truly what benefits the commons the most, right? And it's trust, transparent. Like, it's like, that's bigger than, honestly, my ethics, right? Like, it's bigger than, does it use slave labor even? Because it's like, right, what I want is actual truth in whether it uses slave labor at a higher priority to not use slave labor, so that I can make more ethical decisions. Like, it's a slightly different, or it's like a slightly more logical, algorithmic value system. Right. So that I can live my values, if that makes sense. Because I think I just okayed slave labor, which was not my intention. But like
that's a good, if slightly uncomfortable example, is if something uses slave labor, but it uses 5% of what the competing company uses, I mean, it's a massive improvement. But is it, nixed because of that small, like the much smaller amount? Is that still negating, or are we after improvement over perfection?
Yeah,
I mean, there's no right answer, right? Like, as you said, you don't really want to come on the side of like, yeah, for sure, slavery. Like, no, nobody wants to say that. But it's, when do you make that call? When do you say, I don't like it, but it is, it's an improvement?
Yeah, And it's
And
also
it's all
really
we have.
somewhat easy, especially with slavery, to be like, how dare you use slavery? I'm like, what are we talking on right now? We're all using slavery. And so, like, to say, okay, well, I'm going to only buy computers that use zero slavery, I'm not going to be on a computer.
Yeah, here's your abacus.
So, but to be able to work back that system to get less and less slavery and less
Right.
and less environmental, like, because of transparency, which is, right, we can
Right.
only get cobalt through I don't know, whichever, silicone through slavery, whatever the thing is that we only get this way. Are there any other places that are doing this ethically?
Right.
Even if it's astronomically expensive, what is our value system? A million-fold times? Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Like, what's the... But owning that, because it's like, it's almost like, well, how dare you use it? It's like we're all using it. It makes us even more uncomfortable to be like, well, zero's clearly yes, zero's the number we want to get to, and none of us are living with zero slaves.
Right. Especially nobody that's joining or watching this meeting.
There'll be a few people on it completely, because there's silence if you're watching this TV show on how the most dangerous ways to get to school. And like everyone, a lot of them will have a school that has both localer people and people who come from a long way along, and they're like, well, these kids can't learn because they trekked for but I'm like, if you don't see the ingenuity these kids have over the other ones, even if they're not getting A's, like, I'm like, this is, and who? My daughter was like, why do they want to get to school so bad? I'm like, why do they want to get to school so bad? Like, why aren't they on an iPad at home, right? Like, why are they trekking this far? Like, wow, this seems weird that this is what we do right now. Anyway, it gets a complete side note, but
Yeah. Somewhere in there was reference to protocol.love, and if you ever guys wanted to try to informally, form the group a little more cohesively, it would be great to share that. Just, you can learn about it in the process, might be the most fun part, because it does sound like you basically have your informal governance working just fine, in terms of, you probably know how you're making decisions and you're writing them down somewhere.
I mean, yes,
No,
and no. We're all
recorded,
about transparency. We're on video live, so in that way, it's there's a record of it. It's just none of us are great at taking notes, so we have an agenda that we're not the best at taking notes on. But
so the transparent index isn't happening yet. So that's totally could be the next step if and when you guys are ready.
Ray, I have a question. I sent a message on your form at protocol.love, or maybe it was your CoGov. And I'm just wondering if maybe there's a time that we could talk. I have a project idea that may be collaborative, or maybe I could talk about finding a way to hire you to design something for me. I do have something designed already, but I feel like it's based on the MetaCurrency project, so I think that blockchain would be perfect for it. But I'm an artist, and I feel like maybe this group isn't right for me. There was a lot of talk this past week about, I don't know, I just felt really undervalued, and I'm not sure. I don't feel like I fit with this because I'm not maybe tech or arts woo-woo or whatever, but I'd love to talk to you about it and see what you think.
Sure. I'm always glad to make time for that, Shiloh.
Cool.
Sorry I missed your communication. I'd like to make sure we figure out where that was and how I missed it. But if you're on Facebook, that's definitely a great way to grab me.
Okay. I have a lot of social anxiety, so I have Facebook, so I'll try to reach out.
Okay. What's that?
I can connect you two on in Messenger and add you together.
Cool.
So I acknowledge, Shiloh, that we all fit in different ways. That I know from my experience coming into the tech space and not being very tech savvy. There's a lot of times that things feel like they're too technical, and my brain goes off, and sometimes I make it like I don't belong here. That from our side, you're welcome anytime. Your contribution is amazing, even though you don't have a project, possibly because you don't have a project, but also you do have a project. Like you
I have a project, but
and
yeah.
you have it. Yeah, it's a very important project, and even if it's not quite articulated, that it's I don't even know what I'm trying to articulate. But you're welcome here. If you're feeling that you don't belong here, it's not from us. Or if there is something we've done or said, then please absolutely let me know, because
yeah,
I value having you here.
Totally agree. I'm in the midst of reading a book on sort of like, on building your board and how you should structure it. And one of the key things is diversity on the board. And like of everything. So a huge part of it is having people who aren't super technical. So if we get too technical and you're like, I don't understand, well, guess what? A lot of people watching aren't going to understand either. So we should maybe not get that deep in that session and maybe have a different one for a different committee or something. So there is a really important part of having a really varied board as far as like skill sets and, right? Because even if you're not technical, you already seem to have a better understanding of like cryptocurrency than I do for sure. So that alone, I mean, that's still technical. So you know more than me in at least one area.
And I think even on another front, like with doing Game B and coming together as a team and doing any of this stuff is like those uncomfortable feelings that come up, both the like internal ones of like, I don't belong, I'm not good enough, I'm not, but also like the actual interconnection of like someone says something wrong and we don't talk about it, or whether it was wrong or not, it was taken differently than it was intended. And like that like our egos, there's everything, right? And when there gets to be uncomfortable emotions, game A of the current world is about like, push them down, don't feel them. How dare you bring this up, Shiloh? It's a board meeting, right? Like, and that's not, because that's some of the most valuable stuff we're going to get is going to be that, right? As an individual, I'm feeling like that when you don't feel right, when you're feeling like you're not in the best mood, do you show up to these or do you not show up to these? And I think you show up if you want to, right? If you're someone who value like, no, I need time, I don't want to be here, then you don't. And if you're someone who's like, no, I want to show up and be who I am in the moment, then you show up. And it's about the group allowing that or not, right? Maybe we do have a rule where it's like, no, this is about this thing. And so you can't show up unless you're in your highest consciousness. That's a pretty high bar to set. And so we're all going to have different times of being high and being low and being in like honoring that, both in like, I'm not going to contribute the best today, and honoring that like I'm feeling and I don't know where or why, right? I don't know whether it's me. I don't know whether it's you. I don't know. Like, I don't know whether it's like, what is there here? But anytime there's a uncomfortable emotion, I find that's like, there's something there, like something to learn, something to help with. And the more we're willing to share, the better. Sorry.
That's actually why I came today. I'm really busy actually doing a lot of yard work, and I just had to set this time aside because I was feeling very hurt and blocked because of it. And so I just wanted to come on and clear the air or whatnot. So.
Okay, I'm glad you said something.
Yeah.
And there's also, I mean, we pretty much always stick around after too. So if there's ever a concern that you don't want to air, live and record it on YouTube, that's also an option. If you want to stick around after and say, hey, by the way, I didn't, feel like saying this in front of kind of the entire world, but it, et cetera. And then we can hash stuff out that way.
And can I just say that bringing the non-technical perspective to the table is about the best thing that is possible here, because so many systems are designed by the tech people who are programmers, coders, and they are so awful to use. And so, whenever I see such a system, it's okay, surely a developer designed this, because I can see how the thought processes went behind the project and why it is created this way. But I can also, so I can use it, but it's first, usually they are very ugly. And secondly, they look like they were designed by someone with like zero social skills and consciousness about other people. So non-technical stuff is great. Just we need more of this.
There's a really good book on that topic called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum that talks about sort of the start of software and like how it was developers that were making choices on usability, and they're like super techie people, so they made techie usability choices so other techies could pick it up and use it, and somebody that wasn't is like, I have no idea what's going on here. And yes, Juba, I think the copy of that book you have is mine.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't buy it, so it's totally yours. You're never getting it back.
Hey Shiloh, I did find your contact request. You used the website form. Cool. So yeah, I got your email there.
Okay.
Email.
Perfect. I'd have to say one more thing maybe about art is right now you guys are all working in this game B world and also game A, and you're trying to compete in a way either with each other or with game A or however that is. But with art, you can actually practice something before it's a reality. So you can test things out in the real world on a diverse public and actually get results, like real world results, without having to set everything up and have all these rules and laws and exacting everything and telling everybody how it's going to be. You can actually let them guide you. So I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I love that. And it's very similar to what was coming up for me this week of like the art and the dance the war and the dance, and how the war is very about competition and there's only one winner, and the dance is like show up and dance and it doesn't really matter where you are, and like art is the dance. And it's funny because I always label myself as like not an artist, and then I look at the like way that I creation in the world and invention, and it's in an artistic format. Like it's creative and artistic, and it's like playing with it and making mistakes, and you're allowed to make mistakes in art and not getting too serious. And although we're doing serious work, right, we're trying to create a world that works, it's also very important to know, right, that it takes all. And so if it's not fun for you, if it's not, like, why isn't it? And how is it on us to make it fun? Or is it, like, working through those dynamics? And that doesn't necessarily mean working through them here on camera, whatever feels comfortable, not comfortable, but I don't, my mind went blank. But honoring them, right? Like not pushing them away and saying, yes, they're welcome. It's welcome for those things to show up, and we'll deal with them as we do, even if, you know, part of dealing with it is honoring it maybe off camera, or, you know, doing that. I know there's a lot of Adriel and I have both done Landmark. I don't know if anyone else done Landmark. There's like behind the scenes in the admins, this like joke of Landmark, of like, oh yeah, like Landmark. I'm like, actually, I liked doing Landmark. What was my point of that? Oh, learning from it, how most of what we react to in the world is our story about what's happening versus what's actually happening. And even knowing that, you don't know that, like, you don't really, like, it still will continually keep coming up because all we react to is what we think is happening, right? My kid does something and I'm putting like adult emotions and adult intent on her and whenever you kind of like talk about that, right, the emotion that's brought up and the why that emotion's there, that it, I don't know, for me anyway, a lot of times it's like a misunderstanding on the reason. And then as someone who gives out misunderstanding a lot, that it's like, oh, that's not how I meant that at all. And I get why people get it that way, but it's in a different, anyway, just I wish as a society we had other ways to deal with it, of where it wasn't so considered rude to ask or rude to clarify, right? To be, because it's like you do just react instead of like, wait, did you mean it like this? Like, I'm feeling hurt because I take it like this. And then like, oh, no, that's not how that was meant. And I wish there were either easier ways to deal with that.
That's what I practiced a little bit using my son's kindergarten. We have this lot of parents and teachers that are really NVC enabled, so to speak. NVC being the nonviolent communication. And practicing this is amazing. And it is surprisingly hard sometimes, especially to get in the mood of actually listening to the other person. And until you start practicing it, you really don't know how hard it is. And it was a discovery for me. I was like, and then there is this way of speaking, which is like, you said something, and I go, okay, what I heard, what I understood is this and this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And practicing this after a while, it really allows to understand and be more like seeing the situation from some perspective, not from the perspective of my own head, but from outside. And it's amazing how much is missed when we have this only narrow point of view here, right? So,
Right. It reminds me of a saying: "Seek first to understand, and then to be understood."
mm-hmm.
We're at near the end of the hour for the hour-long board meeting. If people want to start wrapping up the thoughts, we have our Saturday morning roundtable tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time that everybody is welcome to. We talk about our project or what we're looking for in a project, as well as what we are looking for to get out of that session that day and come up with common solutions to whatever problems are rising in that space. We do that every Saturday morning. And this session, we switch back and forth between an IdeaCafe for projects and a board meeting for how do we move the MetaProject forward? How can we create something, the technological commons, or our first project from the technological commons, whatever that happens to be, we are more in the conversation part of that.
Yeah, well, so there at the end, you guys are talking about a lot of the human technologies, human interactional technologies, which is a critical piece of the protocol.love work for sure. So, like, to the extent there's ever interest in just like making notes of best practices in terms of, you know, when the stuff comes up, and how to process through that, that's important work. I'm in to do that.
I did do some reading on the protocol and starting actually with the holochain, and that seems to be like totally interesting tech. I was not totally aware of what it does before, and that there is some answer to privacy and data of the users kept in one place and being used by various different interfaces. So there is great possibility there, and the protocol that's amazingly convergent on some things I did read before. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that all the different aspects of the protocol are not for passing like value is not the best word, but themselves, but it's more like setting banks of a river and making streams through which the value can flow and feedback, something like this. Make sense?
You're muted, Raymond.
Yeah, I'd go one step further. It's to a certain extent, it's the banks of the river, but it becomes the banks of the river because it's actually the sand that the water starts flowing through. And as the water finds a natural path, then the riverbanks start forming to create structure around what's emerging.
Mm-hmm. Are there any systems using the protocol right now?
Yeah, there's about 15 different collectives that are in various processes with the collective foundational document process. 2 are very active currently that I'm still tracking and involved with. And we just had a really terrific gathering yesterday that's on my Facebook page, a recording of it, where we're launching the Facilitators Guild, which is other people who would love to learn and consult and teach protocol.love to organizations in startup phase to actually do a collective foundational document. So we're putting together a group of people interested in doing that. And there'll be more information forthcoming about that for anyone who might be interested or that you know is really good kind of group facilitator. You might want to learn about it.
I'll check it out.
Well, thanks for your feedback. You know, like poking holes is any of these the brain power that's in these game B groups. I would just love all of it to just poke the holes and tell me where this isn't going to work. And I might have passed Jubilee's whole poke test. I don't know. I'll have to review the recordings and see how it went. Actually,
Absolutely.
It was
There's still
great.
nothing's perfect. It's good.
I actually did watch the whole 2 hours of it, and yeah, it was great.
Right. Let's say goodbye to YouTube.
Right.
See you tomorrow morning. You guys can stick around and stop recording on YouTube.